Hello everybody, and welcome to the Clark County Public Library program, Afterschool Posse. My name is Miss Amanda, and today I'll be reading a book and showing you a craft that you can make at home. Today we'll be reading The Yellow House by Susan Goldman Rubin, illustrated by Joss A. Smith, with permission from Abrams. One day in the spring of 1888, Vincent van Gogh put on his straw hat, gathered his art supplies, and went out to paint. Peach trees, irises, and buttercups bloomed in the orchards and meadows, but Vincent's favorite was the sunflowers. At the end of the day, when Vincent finished painting, he returned to his yellow house. Because he had just recently moved to Arles, a town in the south of France, he had only a few friends: the postman and his family, a soldier, and Monsieur and Madame Junot, who owned the cafe down the street where Vincent often ate dinner. Days go by without my speaking a word to anyone, Vincent wrote to his brother Theo, who was an art dealer in Paris. Like many artists, Vincent worked long hours by himself, but he missed the company of other people, especially artists who discussed painting. He hoped that warm, sunny Arles would attract fellow painters to join him. Together they would form a kind of family of artists, a studio of the South. In Paris the year before, Vincent had met many painters. The ones he most admired were the Impressionists. Fascinated with how natural light, times of day, and weather affected the way things look, they inspired him to change the colors of his paintings from browns, blacks, and grays to much brighter shades of blue, pink, and green. The Impressionists also helped him learn to paint exactly what he saw with his own eyes: boats on the river, the countryside, flowers, and people. But another artist, Paul Gauguin, particularly impressed Vincent because he was doing something entirely different. Paul painted pictures from his imagination, feelings, fantasies, and dreams. Paul was far away in Brittany, in the northern part of France. Perhaps Gauguin will come south, Vincent wrote his brother Theo. Theo thought this was a good idea. The two artists could spend a year together in Arles and work side by side. Theo sent Paul a letter inviting him to join Vincent in the Yellow House. Paul accepted the invitation. When Vincent learned that Paul had agreed to come, he was so excited that he began to get everything ready in the Yellow House. He installed gas lamps so that they could paint inside at night, and he bought a bed for the guest room. Now that I hope to live with Gauguin in a studio of our own, Vincent wrote to Theo, I want to make decorations, nothing but big flowers. So Vincent made bright new pictures of sunflowers to hang in the guest room. He also painted pictures of the little park across the street and hung those up too. On October 23rd, 1888, Paul arrived in Arles. Vincent was delighted. The weather was perfect, so the two artists set out to paint right away. Like Vincent, Paul quickly realized that the sun was hotter and brighter in the south than it was in Paris or Brittany. The colors of the sky, the buildings, and the flowers glowed vividly. Even the people looked different. Thrilled at what they saw, Vincent and Paul felt inspired to paint. but each man went about it in his own way. Although Vincent and Paul shared their art supplies, charcoal, paints, and canvases, they used them differently. Vincent liked to load his brush with lots of paint and put it on the canvas in dots and dashes. "My brush stroke has no system at all," he once wrote to an artist friend. "I hit the canvas with irregular touches of the brush, which I leave as they are." Thick swirls of strong colors expressed his feelings, his love of nature, his joy in painting. Paul painted more slowly than Vincent. He loved nature too, but he would wait and dream about what he saw before he started to make a picture. He did not squeeze paints straight out of the tubes onto the canvas like Vincent sometimes did. Instead, Paul blended the paints on his palette, making new colors that matched his dreams. He spread the paints smoothly in careful shapes. At night, the two artists talked about painting. For instance, they each had favorite colors. Paul could tell what color Vincent liked from the way he had decorated the house. "In my yellow room, sunflowers with purple eyes stood out against a yellow background. The yellow sun shone through the yellow curtains. Oh yes, the good Vincent loved yellow." Paul, however, really adored red. Each used his favorite color in portraits of Madame Junot, the wife of the cafe owner. The artists asked her to come to the yellow house to pose. Vincent's portrait had a bright yellow background. As usual, he painted quickly and made his picture in less than an hour. He was probably finished by the time Madame Junot had to go back to work. Paul only had time to make a drawing. Later, he went to the cafe to do more drawings. Then he returned to the house and put his drawings together to compose a scene showing not only Madame Junot, but also her customers, a pool table, and even a little cat. The background in this painting is bright red. Vincent showed Madame Junot in the daytime, dressed and ready to go out. Her parasol, to protect her from the hot sun, and gloves lie on the table. Paul, however, created a nighttime scene in the smoky cafe. Madame smiles a little as she glances at the sleepy group behind her. Vincent and Paul spent many evenings discussing the best way to paint. Often their discussions developed into quarrels, but they did agree that they could learn from each other. Paul told Vincent to try painting something he saw only in his imagination, not in real life. Vincent imagined his mother and sister in a green garden back home in Holland. He picked colors that he thought expressed their personalities and used small dots to paint. The painting was an experiment for him. He worked on it at home when the cold November weather made painting outdoors unpleasant. Usually, Vincent aimed to complete a painting in one sitting. By the time the sun set or a rain shower forced him to stop for the day. But now, working inside on this painting, he could not be sure when it was finished. He worked on it so long that he thought he had spoiled it. "I think that you also need practice for work from the imagination," Vincent wrote to Theo. He did not like this imaginary garden as much as the real garden in front of the yellow house. Paul then painted a garden. Maybe he felt that it was easier to teach Vincent by showing him rather than telling him how he worked. In Paul's painting, there are 4 women coming down a curved path alongside grass and plants. The picture has a mysterious mood. A red fence blocks the way. A large green bush seems to have a face. Living and working together turned out to be difficult for the two artists. They clashed in many ways. Vincent was messy and careless. Paul was neat and organized. Vincent talked all the time, while Paul stayed quiet. Vincent tried to please his roommate, but often his attempts backfired. Paul usually did the cooking, but once in a while, Vincent tried to make a meal such as soup. I have no idea what mixtures he used. They seemed like those of the colors on his canvases, but we could never eat it, Paul remembered. In 2 pictures of their chairs, Vincent expressed their differences. Vincent's chair sits on a tile floor in front of a box of onions. His chair is made of plain yellow wood, and his pipe and tobacco rest on the seat. Paul's armchair is fancier, with a curved back and a green fabric seat. It holds 2 books and a candle. Vincent saw himself as a simple man with simple tastes, but he viewed Paul as a thinker who liked nice things. When Paul sometimes found Vincent irritating, he appreciated how hard Vincent worked and how much he loved nature. He expressed his admiration in a portrait he made of Vincent painting sunflowers, which he gave to Theo as a gift. By December, however, Paul wrote to Theo that he wanted to return to Paris. Vincent guessed how he felt, and it greatly upset him. The last 2 weeks of the year were cold and terribly windy. The 2 artists were cooped up in the yellow house. One night they got into a fight. Vincent became very angry and almost attacked Paul. Instead, he hurt himself by cutting off part of his ear. Vincent was taken to the hospital, and a frightened Paul quickly left Arles. Although they never met face to face again, Vincent and Paul exchanged letters. They still admired each other's art, and they got along much better as pen pals than as roommates. Vincent told Paul to keep the sunflower paintings he had made for him. Paul gave Vincent his drawings of Madame Junot, and later Vincent did a painting based on it. When Paul saw the painting, he wrote to Vincent, "I like it better than my drawing." Through their letters, Vincent and Paul continued to encourage each other. The pictures they made during the 2 months they lived together in the yellow house are some of the most important and beautiful of their careers. Working side by side, the artists inspired and challenged each other. Today, the paintings still glow with their emotion and energy. The end. Now I'll show you a craft that you can make at home. I've made an autumnal tree. To make this at home, you'll need a printout of this tree, which you can find at the Clark County Public Library website. You'll need some puzzle pieces, which you'll paint with fall colors, orange, red, yellow, or brown, and then glue them to your tree. Thanks for listening. Bye.